See your age mates buying cars for their mothers, building houses for their fathers. And you're just jumping from one job application to another. After all we spent on you to go to school, you are nothing but a failure. Richard's mother said to him one hot afternoon, "My name is Richard. I graduated from the University of Lagos 7 years ago at the age of 23, the youngest in my set. At 6 feet tall and muscular, thanks to my love for the gym, one would think I had everything figured out. But reality had other plans. I had walked out of the university gates full of hope, dreams bigger than life itself. I believed that with my degree in hand, the world would welcome me with open arms. But life? Life had a different script. Job applications turned into rejection emails. Interviews led to "we'll get back to you," but they never did. Weeks became months. Months turned into years. And here I was, at 30, still trying to find my footing in a world that seemed determined to leave me behind. That evening, I sat on the small bench outside our house, staring at the streetlights flickering in the distance. The weight of my mother's words pressed on my chest like a boulder. Was I really a failure? You're thinking again, right? I turned to see my childhood friend, Emeka, standing beside me, hands in his pockets. He had always been the carefree one. "How did you know?" I asked, forcing a small smile. He sat beside me, nudging my shoulder. "Man, I know that look. Your mom gave you another motivational speech again." I chuckled, but it was hollow. A motivational speech that could break someone's spirit. He sighed. "Bro, I know it's not easy. But look, you're not a failure. Jobs aren't easy to find in Nigeria. We're all hustling. But things will get better. Just hold on." His words should have comforted me, but doubts still lingered. "Emeka, 7 years have passed. What if my mother is right? What if I really am a failure?" He turned to me, his face serious. "Listen, Richard, failure isn't when you haven't reached where you want to go. Failure is when you give up." That night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision. I wouldn't give up. Not yet. Not now. If life had shut doors in my face, then maybe it was time to build my own door. And so, I woke up the next morning with a renewed fire in my heart. I would rise, no matter what it took, because I was not a failure. I was just getting started. The job hunt continued. Every morning, I would dress up, CV in hand, moving from office to office, company to company, hoping for an opportunity. But all I met were dismissive glances and polite rejections. One afternoon, exhausted and frustrated, I stopped at a small roadside joint to buy a bottle of water. As I stood there, sipping slowly, I heard a familiar voice. "Richard, is that you?" I turned to see Samuel, an old classmate from university. He looked different, dressed in designer clothes, a gold chain resting on his neck, and a car key dangling from his fingers. "Sammy, it's been a while, bro." I forced a smile. "You've really made it." He laughed. "It's Goddo. But what about you? What are you doing now?" I hesitated, then shrugged. "Still looking for work. It's not easy." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I know a place that could change your life, if you don't mind." "What do you mean?" I asked, intrigued. "Just follow me." I followed him to a sleek black Benz parked nearby. Inside were two other guys, both looking just as flashy as Samuel. The air smelled of expensive cologne, and a low hum of Afrobeat played through the car speakers. "Meet my guys, Osas and Benny," Samuel introduced. "We handle things. Guaranteed money, no stress." "What kind of work?" I asked cautiously. Osas chuckled. "It's business, bro. But we can't talk here. Let's drive to a cool spot." I hesitated for a moment. Everything in me screamed caution. But the memory of my mother's disappointed face, the years of joblessness, and the feeling of being left behind clouded my judgment. I got into the car. As we drove off, Samuel patted my shoulder. "Relax, Rich. Your life is just beginning." And just like that, I stepped into a world I never imagined I'd be part of. Days passed, and the idea lingered in my mind. No matter how hard I tried to push it away, it always crept back in. Samuel had told me stories of money, luxury, and respect. It sounded too good to be true, yet the temptation gnawed at me. Every day, my mother's complaints grew louder. "Richard, do you want me to die of shame? How can my son be useless? I should be enjoying life by now, not still struggling." One evening, after another exhausting day of fruitless job hunting, I sat in the dark, my thoughts in turmoil. I had done everything right, yet life refused to reward me. What was the point? Samuel's words echoed in my head. Man, you've got nothing to lose. Make money first, then think about morals later. I picked up my phone and dialed his number. Sammy, I'm ready. A brief silence. Then his voice came through, filled with satisfaction. Good choice, my guy. Welcome to the real world. As I ended the call, a cold realization settled over me. I had made my choice. There was no turning back now. Richard's transformation was swift. At first, it started with small earnings, enough to buy food, enough to stop worrying about transport fares. But soon, the money came in torrents. His first million left him speechless, staring at the phone screen in disbelief. Then came another, and another. His wardrobe changed overnight. Gone were the faded jeans and tired sneakers, replaced with designer brands. Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton. His mother, once his greatest tormentor, now beamed with pride. My son, you have finally made it, she exclaimed the day he handed her the keys to a brand new car. The real triumph came when he bought them a house. A massive duplex in a gated estate. His father, once silent in disappointment, wiped away tears as he walked through the grand living room. Richard, my son, you have done well. Everything Richard had prayed for is now his. Money, cars, houses, women. Nights blurred into parties. Drinks flowed endlessly, and his name became synonymous with wealth. Man, Richie, you're a big boy now. Osas laughed as they sat in a club's VIP section, bottles of champagne littering the table. Richard smiled, but deep inside, a tiny voice whispered, a voice he had long ignored. Is this really the life you wanted? For now, he chose to silence it. There was still more to enjoy. Then, just as quickly as it came, everything began to crumble. Richard's greatest nightmares were becoming a reality. Deals started failing. Accounts were frozen. Calls stopped coming. The lavish lifestyle he had built began to slip through his fingers. The once loyal friends disappeared. Samuel, Osas, and Benny, nowhere to be found. His cars were repossessed. The house he bought for his parents was taken by the bank. His mother, the same woman who once praised him, now looked at him with disgust. So, this is how you got the money? Fraud? Lies? I would rather have a poor son with dignity than a rich thief. Richard sat in the darkness of his now empty apartment, hands on his head. He had lost everything. And worst of all, he had lost himself. Days turned into weeks, and Richard found himself spiraling deeper into desperation. The lavish life he once had was now a memory, and the taste of poverty was bitter. He couldn't bear the thought of living without luxury. He had felt power, influence, and respect. Losing it all made him feel invisible. His mother's words echoed in his ears every day. So, this is how you want to end your life? Begging for small change? Look at you, Richard. You are nothing. He wanted to scream, to tell her to stop, but deep down, he knew he was already drowning. The whispers had reached him before. Dark whispers, dangerous whispers. Money rituals. He had brushed off the thought before, but now, it seemed like the only way out. The stories were everywhere. Young men like him, once nobodies, now driving the biggest cars, living in mansions. One evening, he sat on a wooden stool outside their old, crumbling house, staring at the darkness ahead. His fingers drummed against his thigh. His mind was at war. I can't live like this, he muttered under his breath. I can't. Just then his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Hello, he answered. A deep, raspy voice replied. Are you ready to change your destiny? Richard's breath hitched. His hands trembled slightly as he tightened his grip on the phone. Who is this? He asked. A friend. You want money, don't you? Real money. Not this poverty you're living in. Richard swallowed hard. Meet me tomorrow, 10 p.m. Come alone. The line went dead. Richard stared into the night, heart pounding. He had made his choice. Richard stared at the flickering bulb above him as he sat across from the herbalist. The air smelled of burning incense, thick, suffocating. He clenched his fists. You say you want money, right? The herbalist's voice was deep, almost hypnotic. Richard nodded. Yes, Baba, but I don't have much money for all those big sacrifices. The unknown man who had brought him there chuckled. That's why I brought you here. Baba will give you another way, a cheaper way. The herbalist narrowed his eyes. There is only one alternative. He leaned forward. But it will cost you something greater than money. Richard swallowed. What is it? The room fell silent. Then the herbalist smiled. His teeth yellowed and uneven. Your own blood. Richard's breath caught in his throat. My own blood. His voice barely rose above a whisper. The herbalist nodded slowly, his dark eyes locking onto Richard's. Yes, not all riches come from money. Some require sacrifice. Are you willing to pay the price? Richard felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He had come here searching for a way out, an escape from his mother's disappointed stares, from the job rejections, from the suffocating weight of failure. But this was something else entirely. He turned to Samuel, who leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. How do you think I made it? Samuel's voice was low, smooth, dangerous. You think a CV and a tie got me a Benz? Richard felt a chill run down his spine. He had always suspected there was something off about Samuel's sudden wealth, but hearing it confirmed made it real. Too real. He looked back at the herbalist, whose smile remained patient, expectant. This was the moment, the choice. Would he give in to desperation? Would he trade a piece of himself for wealth? Or would he walk away, still broke, but with his soul intact? Richard closed his eyes, his mother's words echoing in his head. You are nothing but a failure. Then he exhaled sharply, opened his eyes, and made his decision.